basic premise of my lesson today is the idea that we are, each one of us, on a unique and highly personalized spiritual path, and that wherever we may look, there are messages showing up for us. Because if we can articulate a question that we want some wisdom about, and if we pay attention, information will show itself to us. So we teach around here that God energy shows up in each and every form, in every person, in objects and circumstances, in relationships, in life struggles, in joyful moments, in everything. So our job on the spiritual evolutionary journey, on this highway of life that we've been talking about, growing up and healing, is to look for the spiritual truth that is on display wherever we go and whatever we do. And at the beginning of the very book that Susan quoted today in this thing called You, Ernest Holmes starts off the book with this assertion. He says, you, like all others, are seeking the joy of living. You wish to be needed, to be loved, to be included in the great dream of life. And this urge is in every individual, and it is in everything. Everything in nature is endowed with this creative urge. Ernest Holmes, this thing called You. So if that's true, guess what I want to talk about this morning? Social media, right? Just kidding, but wow. There is some spiritual wisdom there too. And there's other stuff there, but there is wisdom that shows up for us sometimes. So for example, I have pulled this slide, the picture. Choose a pill. Choose the red pill to start life over at age 12 with all the wisdom you have now. That's the red pill. Choose the blue pill to jump to age 60 with $100 million in your bank account. So I saw this on Facebook several years ago, actually, and it poses a question that I have discussed in spiritual circles like this before, and I thought it would be an interesting idea to bring to us today. So let's read it again. Choose the red pill to start life over at age 12 with all the wisdom you have now, and choose the blue pill to jump to age 60 with $1 million in your bank account, $100 million. So which pill would you take? Take the red pill, start life over with all the knowledge. Take the blue pill to jump to 60 years old, whichever direction that is. But the important part is have $100 million in the bank. So when I read this for the first time, it kind of stopped me in my tracks. It's an interesting question. I really had to stop and think for a minute. But then I made my choice. And I'm going to give you a moment to pause and consider which pill you would choose. It may not be an easy decision, so I'm going to give you just a minute. And I'm not going to ask you to share which pill you would choose. That's private. But I think your choice reveals quite a bit about you. So before I share my choice, let me talk a little bit more about the two pills and what they mean, in my opinion. So choosing the red pill would probably mean that you have felt like you've learned some things. You've picked up a lot of wisdom along the way that you would like to have more time to live with. It might mean that you could identify some choices that you made in the past that you might change, and you'd be curious about what would the impact of a different choice be on the life that followed that choice. If you've learned a lot about how life works, maybe through trial and error, possibly through some therapy, or even some personal or spiritual study, you have a desire to see how that wisdom would play out. If it impacted your earlier choices, going back to age 12 would mean that you would have decades to see the results of your personal healing and evolution. Basically, I see choosing the red pill signifies that you understand and value the power of time. It's a pretty cool pill. Or you could choose a blue pill. Choosing the blue pill might mean that you have some big ideas that you would like to have the resources to put into place. You might feel like you could take your newly found wisdom and make a bigger difference over the next 20 years or so in your own life and in the lives of others with lots of resources with which to work. Blue pill choosers might feel they could kind of jump ahead to having a bigger impact due to these amazing resources, even if they had to give up a few years to do so. If you're older than 60, you might like to run the clock backward just a little bit. But choosing the blue pill would signify that you understand and value the power of resources. Also, pretty cool pill. You know, there really is no right or wrong answer, right? Every time I've considered this puzzle, I've had to think it through again. Like, what would I really choose? It's just an exercise to give you an opportunity to look at your values in this moment, and therein lies the spiritual wisdom that is available. But I promise to share my choice, so I will. But before I reveal my choice, raise your hand if you think I chose the red pill. Okay, go ahead. Now raise your hand if you think I chose the blue pill. Cool. So interesting. And here's another thing I want you to think about. Do you think I would choose the same pill you would choose for yourself? Or do you think I would choose the opposite pill than the one you would choose for yourself? That's interesting because it allows this question of how do you perceive yourself, like me or not like me, right? And that's just more wisdom to uncover for ourselves. And I think about how I would think other people in my life, which pill would they choose? Anyway, here's my choice. I chose, without much hesitation this time, the red pill. The red pill. I know. You think it was an easy choice because I'm basically 60, right? So it's really an easy choice. But regardless of that, I think I would like to go back to age 12 and start from that point with all of the healing ground that I have gained, with all the spiritual knowledge that I've studied and uncovered in my life, and with all the basic wisdom I have now. I'd love to go back. And you may remember, if you've been with me for a little bit, remember how I described my life at age 12. Because at that age, that was the backseat car crying mess that I was at age 12, lamenting loudly over the circumstances that I found myself in. I had just moved from Colorado, where I was very established in a community and Girl Scouts and band and all the things that I loved, friends and everything, and moved to a podunk little town in North Florida, won't name it. And I had to start all over with new friends, a new school, and an adolescent attitude, which was a lot of victim mentality, right? And if I could rewind my life and go back to that moment in the backseat of my car crying my eyes out, and I could wake up with the mind I have now, my life would have turned out quite differently, I am certain. I am very certain. So I got to thinking, what would the important pieces of spiritual wisdom would I want to take back to guide my life choices if I went back there? So I want to share with you 3 little nuggets of universal truth that I wish my 12-year-old self had known. Number 1, I would wish for her to know the power of self-love. So regularly I will start the service and I will say, we are a center that promotes greater self-love through conscious living. Or to flip it around, we promote greater living through higher consciousness of self-love. In other words, we are here to learn how to love ourselves by waking up to the truth that we are spiritual beings, absolutely on the right path and worthy of every good thing. At age 12, I had been taught, and I don't know about you, but by that time I had been taught over and over again, I was a sinner. I was unworthy of God's love and therefore unworthy of really any good thing. And I haven't even at that age discovered that I needed to come out, right? So that layered on top of it, I was really unworthy. I was also taught that self-love was entirely conditional. Love itself was conditional. It was conditional on my behavior, on my apology, on that mood that I was carrying around at that age, on my grades, on my appearance, on basically everything. Love would be removed for the slightest transgression of all the rules that were in place, put there by religion, my parents, society, all of that. My very humanness was completely unacceptable. And at age 12, I was judging my every move, and I came up very, very short. I was struggling at that age. I was struggling with a relationship with the truth itself because lying was better than admitting my emotions or my deepest reactions to things or my failings to obey all those rules that I talked about. Self-love was not modeled for me anywhere I looked. And in the briefest moments when I could summon up some self-love, I would get the reaction, "Who do you think you are?" Right? Like, tamp it back down, sister. Does any of that sound familiar to you? Maybe when you were 12, right? But if I went back now, I would take with me the spiritual truth that I mentioned earlier, the truth that every cell of my being vibrates with the divine energy that lives through me, gives life to all. I would understand that I am a spiritual being, having valuable, human, juicy experiences that are giving me the opportunity to deepen my unity with all of life. I would have in my back pocket an understanding that there are no mistakes with punishments. There are simply choices and consequences that come out of those choices, not some divine punishment. I would no longer live in constant comparison of myself with everyone else. Not in a mindset of competition or racing to see who could get somewhere first. Love of self would lead me to choose a career that would, expand my heart and stand on the truth that I would be honoring my own connection to something inside of me, and the universe around me would bless me with resources because I'm giving my gift to the world. I wouldn't compare my grade to other people's grades, my body to other people's bodies, my bank account or houses to other people's wealth or poverty or whatever. Love of self would allow me to relax in the power of self-acceptance rather than self-judgment. Love of self would allow me to live a long life of authenticity and vulnerability. I wouldn't have to pretend that I like things that other people like just because I'm supposed to like them. I would no longer have to choose to create a pretty picture for the world to see to try to buy their acceptance. I could dress the way I wanted to dress and live the way I wanted to live. I could trust myself to weigh out the choices for me and not worry about what other people would think of my choices. And that leads me to the second universal truth that I wish my 12-year-old self knew. And that is the power of non-judgment. So if I can accept myself on the path of spiritual growth and healing that I'm on, then I can love and accept others on their unique path of spiritual growth and healing, no matter what it looks like. I could spend my entire life simply allowing others to learn at their own pace and not feel the need to rush anyone else along or push them out of my life and heart when they are still learning something that perhaps I feel is just basic decency that they haven't learned yet. If I'm no longer living my life in comparison to others, I can let go of my need to categorize everyone and every action as good or bad or right or wrong. I don't have to judge everything. Because what I've learned now that my younger self would greatly benefit from is the fact that all human beings are the same, aren't they? We have the same emotions. We have the same possible reactions to anything, the same urges, the same lightness of being, and the same darkness of being. Our personalities are at just different points in the development of our character, and we're learning at different rates of speed, but deep down we are all the same. We may have healed the need to act in one way or another, but others may not have healed that yet. Or others may have healed in ways that we have not yet healed. Now, when I see someone behaving in a way that I really wish they didn't behave, it's no longer an opportunity to lash out at them in judgment. It is instead an opportunity for me to look in the mirror. Why is their behavior pushing my buttons? I have found that it is either a behavior that I have hidden from myself or trying to hide from others and they're just exhibiting it out loud, or it's a behavior that I have healed and I'm frustrated that other people haven't healed in that way. I have mistakenly decided that since I learned not to behave that way 2 years ago or 2 decades ago, that everyone else needs to hurry up and learn it too. Or if I learn from the consequences with one experience of that behavior and other people are having multiple consequences they have to face by that same choice again and again, they are somehow stupid or less evolved. In the spiritual wisdom of oneness, as we lit the candle, there is no other. We're in a human race evolving together, learning together, facing consequences together. And the only atmosphere that encourages learning is one of non-judgment and compassion and patience. How many of you are parents in the room? Several of us. We know from raising children that a behavior only sticks around as long as it is needed. The human race as a whole has got a lot of learning to do. And there are many behaviors existing that still must be needed by the entirety of the human race, or they wouldn't still be around. And our job is to allow others to learn their lessons so that all of us can move forward. And we get to focus on our own lessons to keep ourselves headed in the right direction. We can only go as fast as the slowest one among us can go. We can only go as far as our least evolved human being can go. But no matter what, we're all on the same spiritual, beautiful planet together, breathing the same air, living out the consequences of the sum of our individual choices as a collective. And so when we practice non-judgment, we can live by the golden rule. We all know what that is. Do unto others as you would have done unto you. If we have something big to learn, how do we want to be treated? If we have big consequences to face from our choices, how do we want to be treated? If we are hurting and lashing out at others, how do we want to be treated? If we have a beautiful moment to celebrate, how do we want to be treated? When we understand at a deep level that we are all the same, we know that what the other person needs because we know what we would need. Yeah, there are personality differences and preference differences and the ability to receive differences, but the bottom line is that every single human being wants kindness and respect and consideration and acceptance and love and compassion and peace of mind and opportunities to thrive. It doesn't matter the color of our skin or our nationality or our political party or our social status or anything else that makes us uniquely an individual. We each want love. No one is different than you, period. I wish my 12-year-old self could live the rest of her life with that wisdom. And one last one that I would love to claim as wisdom for myself is that there is a power of my mind and my word. I didn't know that at 12. That's one piece of wisdom I would want to take back to her with that red pill. The power that I have in my own life. Man, would my younger self take this one and run with it. Right? Basically, I was taught, maybe you were taught too, that in order to get the kind of life that everyone wanted, the abundant life, the blessed life, the life full of love and peaceful, the picture perfect life, in order to get that kind of life, you had to have luck. You had to have luck. The stars needed to align, and it was all willy-nilly. The luck of the draw. Good genes, being born in the right country or the right neighborhood. Yeah, you could apply yourself and study and work hard, but still, it had to be God's will, right? for good things to happen to you, or something out of the blue needed to happen. I was never taught that I had any control over the basic trajectory of my journey. I was never taught how important relationships were to the overall quality of my existence. I was never taught that there was great power in making a decision and setting an intention. I was never taught about how I choose to think that determines the path ahead, and how I defined myself was really setting the limitations on my own life. Overall, I just never taught that I had self-determining power. I truly didn't know that anything I did really made any big difference to the outcome of things, except perhaps superficially. Ernest Holmes has some things to say about this. He reminds us the barriers, we got it? The barriers between you and your greater good are not barriers in themselves. They are things of thought. Man, I needed to know that earlier. The next thing he says, he goes on to say, the mental patterns laid down in your subconscious throughout the ages can be consciously removed. So that good life that we all want is impacted by and blocked from us only by our own thoughts. So if I could take that piece of wisdom back to my younger self and arm her with it, I would be far less fearful. I would know that there's no boogeyman out there to get me, no power out there trying to trick me, simply a universe that was waiting for me to decide to change my thoughts about myself. I would be more willing to place an order when I sat down at the table of life instead of just letting some cosmic waitstaff deliver whatever the average person was getting on that particular day for fear of being demanding. And with this wisdom, I would invite myself to choose more powerfully and to allow my inherent inner light to shine more brightly. Overall, I've learned the three basic things that Ernest Holmes taught. He taught the divinity of all. We're all God's stuff. We're all God beings. He taught that. He taught oneness and treating each other with goodness as one. And he taught our co-creative power. Those are basically the three pieces of wisdom that I would be taking back to my age 12 self. And the overall impact of this wisdom would be a life blessed in the freedom of love instead of that prison of fear. And living in that kind of freedom would result in me being a magnet for every good thing that I wanted, including resources. And since the question I posed on the table is a rhetorical one, an exercise kind of in the imagination, there are no pills to take to give us either more time or millions of dollars. How do we take the wisdom gained from exploring this answer to the question and still benefit from it, even if it is rhetorical? I think it is in finding the courage to take another pill of sorts, the coolest pill of all, that is readily available to all of us, and that is the pill of acceptance. When we have the courage to swallow the pill of acceptance, we gain tremendous personal power. We accept that we are at the age we are. We accept that we have the wisdom that we have in this moment. We accept that we have the resources that we have right now. And all of that acceptance brings us to this present moment where we have the biggest power of all, and that is the power of choice. We can't go backward or forward in our lives. The powerful moment is right here today, now. And whatever work we do for ourselves to apply this wisdom, whatever work we do will benefit us for the rest of our life in this incarnation, and we will benefit the rest of the human race too. And you will benefit your soul for the rest of its expression, however that goes. Here is what I can offer you. If you are at any discomfort in your life, If you have fear that's rising up, you are being asked to look at whether or not you are living the principles that I just talked about. If things kind of seem to be out of whack for you, take a look at where you have forgotten about the truth of life. Ask yourself, how am I forgetting that I'm a divine being? And that all of life, including everyone else, is a spiritual universe unfolding perfectly for me. How have I forgotten that in this situation? Or how am I forgetting to treat everyone else or a group of someone else's with as much love and respect as I desire for myself? Or how am I forgetting that I have the power of my own choices? Because right now, whatever may be going on in our personal lives or our world, we all need this wisdom and knowledge. And we can get that and we can access that through accepting what is. Take the pill of acceptance. It can be whatever color you want it to be. So if we go back and consider those two imaginary pills, one that could spin back the hands of time and let us live more wisely for many decades, or one that would give us resources, more resources than we can imagine, with which to fulfill our purpose in a more magnifying way right now. Either way, they are just wishful pills. The most empowering choice is the pill of acceptance. None of us have a guarantee of how many more days we will get to exist on this human plane, but we do have a guarantee that we get to choose how to live them. Let's all take the coolest pill of all, the one that has us using our time and our resources to live a life of freedom and joy right here and right now. Will you pray with me? I invite you to take a deep breath and know this with me. Know that right here, right now, I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. I have exactly the resources that I need to live the most empowered life I can live in this moment. And I choose that. I choose to remember that I am a divine being. I choose to remember that the world around me is unfolding for me. There is nothing against me. I choose to remember that how I treat others matters because it's really how I'm treating myself. And I choose to remember that I have power in my own life. And I breathe that in. And I know that for myself. And I know it for each person listening to this prayer. And I am grateful. I'm grateful for that spiritual knowledge that is available to all of us right here and right now. And as I breathe that in, I give thanks. I'm so grateful. I let go and I let it be. And so it is.